Stay tuned, everybody, because it's time for the Playin on Music Row podcast with your host, Fran. Heard each week on this station. And now, here's Fran.
Well, I'd like to welcome everyone and our great guest today, Lee Browning. He's here from Tennessee, right here, and he's playing on Music Row with us. Thank you, Lee, for taking time to speak with us today.
Oh, well, Fran, I appreciate it. It's been a while. We scheduled this a while back. Took a little while, but here we are now.
Yeah, you're busy. Hard to get into everything in order, but we're happy to have you. Who were some of the people that kind of influenced you and got you, at least initially, involved in music?
Whose songs?
No, look, individuals, people. Did you have any people that encouraged you?
Well, I mean, I would have to go all the way back, and I think this is something that most country artists say. It's somebody in their family, which would be my dad. My dad influenced me. He played the guitar, and he taught me a little bit. And he played the piano a little bit, but most of all, he played all those good old songs from Marty Robbins, Johnny Cash, and Charlie Pride, Sonny James. I mean, and I just kind of, once you hear something, I mean, I didn't like it at first, to be honest with you. I was like, I don't want to hear all that stuff. But, once you hear, even today, once you hear a song on the radio like 10 times, all of a sudden you probably start liking it. So I started really enjoying that stuff. And then it started getting in my blood, and I wanted to do more of it, sing country music and everything, and write songs. Wrote some pretty crappy songs back in the 80s and stuff. I mean, when you're trying, you just, you got to start somewhere, when you're writing some songs. But my dad was the biggest influence, and I had a couple uncles that they loved it too. So I couldn't get away from country music. So there's how that all happened.
Right. And now, did they actually play instruments and play out, or was it just like they had heard on the radio?
No, my dad was actually he was pretty good on the guitar. I mean, he wasn't bad. And then I had a cousin, his name was Marty Ojeda, and I don't know another human that could have sounded more like Marty Robbins himself than Marty Ojeda. And Marty could play the guitar probably, I'm not going to say as good as Keith Urban, but I think he was right up there with him. He's gone now, but uh, just this would be at family reunions and stuff like that. They would play, and then I'd get up there and sing. Of course, I sounded terrible. I didn't know how to control my voice and stuff back then, and sometimes I still don't. It's the way it is. That's why I'm glad we have auto tune now. It helps us out a little bit.
Okay. Well, let me ask you, you mentioned a whole bunch of artists that you had listened to. Do you have any that you would say, like artists or writers that you took, you get some influence, you kind of got very interested in?
Like an artist that would be the one that really got to me.
Yeah, that you kind of
back then. It would have to be Marty Robbins back then, in the 70s, because I was young. But it would definitely have to be Marty Robbins and Johnny Cash. I mean, both of those for me were. I listened to their music nonstop. Marty Robbins was probably one of the best storytellers in a song. If you go back and listen to his music, I mean, he could tell a story and make a song out of it. And Johnny Cash had so many life experiences that he put in his music, but he had that little bit of rock and roll in his music. So had that sharp like a razor, slow like a train, sharp like a razor. You heard in the movie, and that's kind of what it was. So those were the influences then, and then in the 80s, of course, George Strait and Alan Jackson, especially Alan Jackson, for me, and George Strait was great, but Alan Jackson came along, and that's kind of they influenced me a lot. That's when I wrote matter of fact, that's when this song right here, Let's Pretend, I wrote that way back in 1990 when I was working in I was working in a wood factory, and all I had to do is grab these little balls and put them in the machine, So I was just standing there doing this all day and would go around and sand them. So I wrote that song um, that day. I wrote it one day, but it took a while before I got a chance to record it, and I did record it, and it was a terrible recording. It was just terrible. But it still gave me the platform to make it better later on, when I could afford to go. Because you and I both know it's not cheap to go record music, especially for an independent artist. We have to pay for this stuff ourselves, and it's not cheap. That's why I tell everybody on TikTok, this is not a cheap uh, independent artist. We have to do this stuff ourselves, so it's kind of hard sometimes.
This is true. Well, in 1990, you mentioned 1990. 1990, you had some #1 songs, right? Some hits. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
No, it was 2004. In 2004, Let's Pretend, that's when we re-recorded it in Nashville. And that's with James Williams. I don't know if you know James Williams Promotions there. He's in Hendersonville.
Yeah.
But I recorded with him, and it was Let's Pretend and From This Day On. Those both went #1 on the indie charts. And we actually made it. We did pretty well going up the Music Row charts back then. So I had a lot of success with them, and I kept on for a little while. But I know we're going to talk about this, but life, it just happens sometimes, and you have to set some things aside. You got to figure out what's the priority.
That's fine. Yeah, I would want to tell them about the success that you actually had. Well, you released a song called "Sad Love Story Songs." And we're going to actually play that song. But can you give us a little background on that? It was written and maybe it was produced.
Yeah, I wrote that. I wrote that a long time ago as well. I think that was in the '90s, probably '96, '95, somewhere around there. But I was going through a divorce at that time, and so here we were trying to figure out who's going to get the kids this weekend, who's going to get them the next weekend, who's going to something. Oh, there we go. Are you back?
You're good. Yeah. You're good.
Okay. And what we're going to do with the house, and perhaps I had to sell my truck just to pay child support at that time. So that's how that song came about. I just took everything that happened and sat down and I wrote that song. I mean, it's every song that I've written has come out of something true in my life that's happened. And that's how that song came along. And as well as I do, when people go into a divorce or something like that, they do have to figure these things out. Who's going to have the kids, who's going to do this or that. But then on the other hand, I was thinking, should I call her up and talk to her all night long? Should I send her a card? Should I send her flowers? Try to make it work. So, that's how all that came about. That's exactly how that song came around.
Okay. Well, we're going to play "Sad Love Story Song" by Lee Browning.
Oh.
Should I send her roses or buy a new dress or two? Or maybe send one of those fancy cards that says I love you? Would it be a little too much? Maybe not enough. Oh, I seem to stay so confused when it comes to love. Oh, it's just another one of those everyday sad love story songs, all about a man.
Feel free to sing it, Fran.
Couldn't get along. Well, they pulled the kids here and there, have to sell the house, car and all. It's just another one of those sad love story songs. Should I call her up, to her all night long and try to tell her how much it hurts being here all alone. Or maybe send a telegram just to let her know that there's a man.
Fran, I'm gonna kind of show my audience. Is that okay?
Just can't let her go. Oh, it's just another one of those
Fran up top right
everyday
here.
sad love story songs. All about a man and a woman that couldn't get along. Where they
Y'all
put
see that? Hope it's good.
here and there, have to sell the house and car and all. It's just another one of those sad love story songs. I took a little time away to try to work through the pain. But everywhere I turned, there was something that reminded me of her, and the tears would fall like rain. Oh, it's just another one of those everyday sad love story songs, all about a man and a woman that couldn't get along. Where they pulled the kids here and there, had to sell the house, car and all. It's just another one of those sad love story songs. Oh, it's just another one of those sad love story songs.
Getting some comments over here on TikTok, what a great song, that kind of stuff. That's why I'm.
It is a great song. I was going to ask you, where actually did you record that? Was that in Hendersonville, or where was
So
that?
that was in Hendersonville. There's a studio up there that I've used every time. A lot of big art, like Three Doors Down, they use that studio a lot. And James Williams picked it out. So he's one of my promoters, but Caden Gordon, Caden. He's literally I have to give a shout out to him. I hope he's watching this on TikTok, but he's really got my song Ring from a Quarter Machine out there big time. And that song you just played will be the next song that we release, probably. And got a brand new song that I can't really tell you about right now.
No,
that
don't let out anything.
we'll release after this next song.
Okay. Well, you mentioned you started writing when you were young. When did you actually get with you think you say, "Hey, I really am a writer," and you start taking those songs that you wrote and start performing them? When did that actually happen? Was that 2004 or after that?
I think this is going to sound really all too familiar for a lot of people out there that I wrote a few songs in the 80s, and I sang a little in church, some of the hymns and stuff in church. And that kind of honestly, that's like church gospel music, and going to church is probably one of the best platforms for you to learn to and get comfortable with singing in front of people, which it's not as easy sometimes as people think. So that's kind of where I started, and I started writing some songs back in the 80s and then of course in the 90s. But in the 80s, when I was still in high school, I wrote a few pretty cheesy songs. And I have some copies of those somewhere. I have to dig them out, but I feel like now rewording some of those songs, because as well as I do, sometimes songs are written 30, 40 years ago and they all of a sudden surface, and they put them out and they're number one. So doesn't matter how cheesy it was then, could make it really uncheesy now.
Okay.
So it was in the 80s.
Okay, well, good. Well, how would you describe your sound? I know you listen to a lot of country. You mentioned rock there for a little bit. How would you describe your particular sound?
I don't know. I feel like I try my best to keep it traditional country. That's kind of my forte. I love that steel guitar. I feel like I'm hoping I got a little bit of a unique sound in my voice, but I like the steel and the fiddle. Because that's where country came from, gospel, and then, as it came along, you had that steel and fiddle in just about every single song back in the 50s and 60s, except for Elvis Presley, he had that rock and roll guitar, and Johnny Cash, didn't really have a lot of steel in his stuff, but I feel traditional is where I am. But the new song I have coming out that we're going to do after this song, not today, but it's a little different style. You'll be surprised when you hear it. It's sounds a little 50s, but I'm going to put some of today's flair to it. And matter of fact, I have a lot of fans on TikTok that's already heard it, and they're like, "Wow!" So I wanted to see what I kind of like to test things sometimes to see what audience is thinking. And on TikTok, I mean, sometimes I have 100, 200, 300 people watching, and I had some really not one bad comment on this song that I did the other day. So look out for that one. It's called. I will tell you, it's called "I Must Have Been Crazy."
Well, we know that about you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you mentioned, and I've been involved with Christian music, but have you written any Christian country? Because you mentioned going in the church. So I was wondering if you've ever written a Christian country.
I will have to say, the one song that I have written, well, actually, there's two. I wrote a song called "Only a Breath Away." And it was a true story about a girl out of Brown, Texas, that was texting her boyfriend that she was on her way home from, and it was on Extreme Home Makeover. You remember that show?
Yes.
You remember that back in the day? So this show was on, and I watched the episode of that show, and they showed the text message, but all it took was her as she was hitting send. She crossed the line, and that was the last breath she ever took. But so I feel like that kind of goes in the realm of country gospel. It could fall under either one. And then a song I wrote called "He Changed Mine." I wrote that 2 days after my son passed away in 2007. I have yet went to do a really master recording on that, but I am working on getting to that. And if you want to know what put the brakes on my career, there it was. I just kind of just told you. Um, as that was a devastating time in my life. I was, I couldn't find the avenues that I needed to get, to work through it correctly. I wound up in the hospital over it. Some people, cope with it better than I did, and I didn't cope with it well. I mean, I started drinking more beer. I started, I didn't take drugs or anything like that, but I started drinking more, and the next thing I know, I'm just in the hospital trying to deal with it, trying to figure out why it all happened, and you know, so that put the brakes on my career big time. And then life happens. You got to work. You got to make money somewhere. You got to try to survive. I mean, I was literally on the streets several times after that, and with nowhere to live, nowhere to go, and had to, just work my way back up. And then I got back into it again. Didn't put anything on the radio till just now. And I don't know what lit the fire under me this time, but something just clicked. And I think Nora, my girlfriend, um, she started listening to my songs, my album right here. I got an album there that a lot of people have been buying, and I've been giving them out too. So she's like, I think you should try it again. I think you should get back into it because it's all you talk about to start with, and it's obviously running through your veins like the blood runs through your veins. So here I am, at 56 years old. I know that might seem a little late to try something like this again, but I don't really care. I mean, I believe if you got a dream, what's that song till you can? If you got a dream, chase it because a dream ain't going to chase you back. And couldn't be a more truer statement than that.
Yeah, well, this is almost like curse. You can't get rid of it. You have to do it. It's just one of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, you have your new release, which we're gonna play now, which is out there now, which is Ring from a Quarter Machine. When I first heard that title, I said, that's a very, very clever title. And so how did that whole song come up? We're gonna play that video also. Yeah.
There's the
Oh,
ring
that's where you
recording
found the
machine. Can you see
picture?
it?
Okay.
Okay, there's there's a story behind that one too. It's there's the ring right there. I mean, you can look how pretty that thing is. It really shines, sparkles, and my girlfriend wears one right now. Uh, but that's a true story too, from a long time ago. A friend of mine, he could not afford to buy his girlfriend a diamond ring. He wanted to let her know he wanted to marry her when sometime, but he couldn't. We just didn't have the money. I mean, no, we didn't make much money back then. So I, told him, why don't you go up to Rose's? At that time, Rose's had these rings. They had a bunch of different rings in them. So I had to spend about $3 to get an actual diamond ring. And he got it out of there and he said, I feel silly, man. I'm going to be embarrassed taking this home. I said, if she loves you, man, it's not going to matter. It's the thought that counts. And she loved it. I mean, she literally loved the fact that he gave her something, until a year later he could buy her a real diamond. Then she really didn't want the real diamond because she had already fell in love with what he had already did for her by giving her that ring. And as to my knowledge, Fran, she's still wearing that ring today. So that's where that song came from, because when he gave her the real diamond, she goes, it ain't the money or the cost. It's all about the thought. It's all about what's inside here. And so that, he told me all about it. And that's how that song just, next thing I know, here I am at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know how songwriters are. Here I'm walking down the road with a pad and a flashlight, pacing the road and writing stuff down, and then the next day kind of started organizing it, putting it together, and there you have, we have Ring from a Quarter Machine.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna for Lee Browning and Ring from a Quarter Machine right now. It's still going.
I bought her a ring from a quarter machine, and she thought it was the sweetest thing. No, I couldn't buy her diamonds and I couldn't buy her gold, but my love for her, I wanted her to know. So I bought her a ring from a quarter machine. Well, I felt kind of funny when I brought it home.
Exactly what he said.
Buy ribbons and bows, but I gave it to her from deep inside of me, and the love in her eyes, it was easy to see when I gave her the ring from a quarter machine. Yeah, I bought her a ring from a quarter machine, and she thought it was the sweetest thing. No, I couldn't buy her diamonds and I couldn't buy her gold, but my love for her, I wanted her to know. So I bought her a ring from a quarter machine. Well, I saved for a year and I got the real thing. Yeah, I finally got her that diamond ring. But when I got home, she really got me when she said, baby, you should know you can't beat my ring from a quarter machine. Yeah, I bought her a ring from a quarter machine, and she thought it was the sweetest thing. No, I couldn't buy her diamonds and I couldn't buy her gold, but my love for her, I wanted her to know. So I bought her a ring from a quarter machine.
Okay, man. What happened here?
the cost. 'Cause if it's true love, all that matters is the thought. She loves her ring from a quarter machine. Yeah, I bought her a ring from a quarter machine. And she thought it was the sweetest thing. No, I couldn't buy her diamonds and I couldn't buy her gold, but my love for her, I wanted her to know. So I bought her a ring from a quarter machine. She loves her ring from a quarter machine.
Excellent.
Fran, I'm trying to get you back on video. I don't know what happened there.
Excellent. That was excellent. Okay.
What's that?
That's excellent. Very good. Very good song. Now,
Thank you. There we go.
You say
There we
you're
go.
getting some. You're getting You said you're getting a lot of airplay from that song, and I'm sure you're going to get it from your other song. You said a love story song. So, are you planning on performing or touring at all in support of this?
Yeah, we're working on that. I've done a couple little tiny spots, venues up here in Kodak, and Sevierville, but I'm actually trying now that we put this out, and I didn't really honestly expect it to do as well as it's doing, because it's #1 on 3 charts overseas, like in Belgium, the UK, and in Germany. They have independent charts and it's #1 on a chart here, and a New Music Weekly. I'm sure you heard of that chart here.
Yes.
It's on the digital country. It's like #9 or maybe 5 this week. So I didn't dream I was going to get this kind of airplay, and now I'm starting to get a lot of requests from people, especially that I've been doing a lot of TikTok. You can probably see bags under my eyes where I've been staying awake, working this TikTok thing hard. But I've developed so many fans all the way out in Nebraska, down in Texas, Florida, up in Boston, everywhere. So now I'm working on putting a band together. Once again, this costs money. So, a lot of venues that I can go to actually have a house band. So, I would be like down in Texas, there's a couple places that they gave me, and there's an Orange Blossom special place down in Florida that have a house band. All I need to do is send what music I want to play down there, and then we go down there. You got to practice a few days before the show, and then we'll hit it off. So it won't be long. I'm going to be going to a lot of places. So because I didn't expect this kind of response or this kind of airplay, I was hoping for it, but now that we're getting it, it's kind of getting surreal now. It's like, we gotta get it going.
Well, yeah, you have a great sound. So how can our listening audience find out more about Lee Browning? You're going to be touring, and they'll want to know where you're going to be. Well, how can they find out or follow you?
It won't be. Everybody can go to Lee Browning Music. That's my webpage. Caden posts stuff on there. And I have an Instagram. I don't even know what that one is, but you can actually click on Facebook and go to my Instagram from my Lee Browning Music page that Caden put up for me. So most of my information is on my Facebook page. I don't have a Twitter account, but I do have an Instagram. And if Caden's on watching right now, he could pop it up here for me, because he's the one that keeps up with all that stuff for me, because I just have so much to keep up with. It's literally as an independent artist, the bigger guys have somebody keeping up with all that stuff for them. And I don't, but Caden keeps up with so much of my stuff. Anytime I forget a link or something, I just text him and he can send it right to me. So at least I got that. But Lee Browning Music will show people the stuff that I'm doing and where I'm going and where I'm going to be and that kind of thing on Facebook.
Do you have a plan for like a website?
I do not have a website set up yet. We're working on that because, but once
Okay.
again, I didn't
Plan.
expect this kind of response.
No, but you're
You
planning a
know,
plan for it. Okay.
yeah. So now that I feel like, this is really getting a lot of attention, and sad love story songs, I think it's going to do extremely well too now. A little bit different style song than this, but it's telling a great story. So I just feel like now it's time that I need to get a web page built, and I need to start getting some dates put up there. It doesn't matter if they're little small shows, doesn't matter. I just need to be out there, um, in front of people singing, and um, that's what we're working on. We're working on it. We're trying to get to that point.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll be able to help you out. I'm going to tell you about something that maybe your fans can help you out with to get this thing, help you out financially. Um, is there anything that maybe I haven't asked you? I asked you a lot of questions. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you would like to say to the listening audience?
Well, I would like to say, everybody that is out there listening, and even on TikTok, I always promote, you know, what helps an independent artists if they go to iTunes or Spotify, um, iHeartRadio, any of these places that you can download for 99 cents. You can buy all 5 songs I have on there, one, a piece. So that helps. That kind of funds. You know what I mean? It will fund. It goes into an account and to CD Baby, and so the more people that download, the more music I can make, and the more places I can go. So if people want to help out that way, and if they enjoy what I'm doing, I definitely want to express they can. It would help out a lot of people who go download the music. 99 cents, I think pretty much everybody can afford 99 cents somewhere somehow for
Even
one
in
song.
the inflation times, even now they can. The price hasn't gone up on that. That that's not inflated. Although the Nashville Broadcasting Network wants to thank you, Lee, for stopping by and speaking to us. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, well, thank you for taking the time to even have me on your show and like my music enough to even play it for the audience. I mean, I really appreciate that because, without an audience, without fans, there'd be no reason to write songs. So the fans are really number one in my book, period. Number one.
Thank you so much.